Good evening, one and all. And yes, I'm going to start with a verse. I've just picked a couple of verses, little small verses that I quite like. And one is about simplicity. I've always liked it because it talks about how something so beautiful and simple it can be offered. But in a way, we always seem to want bigger things. We don't seem to want the simple and the beautiful. We often want bigger and more brighter and more expensive. Yeah, I've always liked this verse. It's very, very simple. It's by Brian Patton. You ask for a poem. I offer you a blade of grass. You say it's not good enough. You ask for a poem. I say, this blade of grass will do. It has dressed itself in frost. It is more immediate than any image of my making. You say it is not a poem. It's a blade of grass, and grass is not quite good enough. I offer you a blade of grass. You are indignant. You say it's too easy to offer grass. It's absurd. Anyone can offer a blade of grass. You ask for a poem, and so I write you a tragedy about how a blade of grass becomes more and more difficult to offer, and about how, as you grow older, a blade of grass becomes more difficult to accept. And whenever I read it, I always think, oh, I want somebody to offer me a blade of grass, because it's, yeah, well, a lovely, simple thing to give somebody. And in a way, how bizarre it is to do that as well. How sad that it is. Probably, if somebody offered you that, you would probably think, it's a bit strange. But I have lately, over the years, been working at the proviso that less is more. And don't take that literally, but in a way, I do find when I let go of stuff, I feel more liberated. I feel more free. And that's internal stuff and external stuff. Yeah. I was going to also read you a small excerpt out of this book by Dara McNulty called Diary of a Young Naturalist. It's a very simple and very lovely book to read, but unfortunately I took it on holiday, so I've just got the cover here. So I won't be able to, I could pretend to read it out, but no, I won't. So yeah, it was a good book. And in a way, I found it very inspiring again. It's just a story of a young boy that has a deep connection with nature. And he doesn't have to go to the Amazonian rainforest to find it. It's on his doorstep. You know, there's snails and slugs and all sorts of things out there. And he wonders at the beauty and the amazement and the simplicity of life. And I just find it very inspiring. It's an inspiring book, but yeah, there it is. Anyway, yeah. So we're going to just pause for a minute and look at a couple of questions, because the word inspires and guides brings me into feeling quite alive when I hear those words. I have a sort of happiness and a smile. And the words, as we know, are very powerful forces. And if I say what doesn't inspire you, what drags you down, what creates a feeling of loss in you, that can feel, well, for me, I can feel slightly hesitant and a bit troubled. You know, when you say that, what drags you down, what makes you miserable, you know, I can feel a bit like, oh, but what inspires and guides me, particularly in a dharmic context, you know, I feel quite bright. That's why I'm wearing a bright t-shirt tonight, everybody. Yeah. But as we know, life is a rich blend, and both these terms are worth deep exploration and reflection. So they're sort of things to be reflected upon again and again. So I'm going to just ask us for a minute, and then we'll just have a couple of minutes, and then I'll ask us something else. What takes us forward? What takes us forward in our lives? And just have a couple of minutes just to see what arises from that. And there's no right or wrong answers. There's no test. And what holds us back? What is it that holds us back? So it may be in such a short space of time over the internet that we didn't come up with anything. And it may be that we came up with answers for the first one a lot quicker than we did the second. Unfortunately, I came up with answers a lot quicker for the second one, what holds you back, than I did what takes you forward. So we're all different, and it will change. But I do think that these questions are worth being curious about and taking some time with. Usually things are more helpful when I'm on my own, when I'm just sitting. And I'll just drop a question in and sit with it for a bit and think, oh, okay. And it's good to be curious and not just think this is what we have, this is where we are. In a way, this is where we are, but we can be anywhere, really. Yeah. So another question was, do we get overwhelmed by daily life events? And I was thinking of my life. Some days it feels very much like I'm taking out the bins, remembering to take out the bins, bringing the bins back after they've been taken out, household chores, remembering to pay the bills, going to work, fixing the car, remembering not to forget something that I've already forgotten. And then when I've remembered what it is, it's usually too late. And so on and so on. And life can sometimes feel a little bit like that. You know, we do our meditation, and we may have had a meditation where we think, oh gosh, I feel very refreshed and in touch with my practice. And then we've missed the bin wagon because it's pulled off and the bin's still there, and it's got another 2 weeks till we take it again. And so in a way, it's all practice, you know, on and off the cushion. You may have heard that term. And in a way, it's the sort of, for me, it's a mythical life, the life of magic and wonderment, and also everyday experience. And in a way, they're intertwined. They're intertwined. And even our biggest heroes probably had to do practical chores. The Bodhisattvas, you know, they're out doing practical chores. it's how they roll. It's how they are. And a question that I ask myself as well is, am I making space for my values? Am I making space for the things that I value? Or am I giving time to the things that I value? Am I in touch with my faith? Or is it just something that sort of comes in at certain times and then sort of gets packed away at a certain time? Am I in touch with my energy? And what is energy anyway? Discuss, and not now. Are we in touch with our connections? People that we love? People that we care for? Are we in touch with those? Are we in touch with connections that, you know, we've maybe lost? Are we in connection with people that we don't particularly care for? And have we got time to sit and stare, as the old poem goes? It's quite revolutionary these days to sit and stare. Have we got time to wonder and explore? We often live in a fast-paced world, and sometimes it feels way too fast for me. I was saying that I've recently been on holiday, and I just enjoyed the slow pace and just observing people walking around, and just, you know, taking the children on the beach, little dogs in their coats, and it all just felt like very, very lovely. But often life is very fast paced, and sometimes I feel like I get left behind. Sometimes I want to be left behind, but other times I feel I can't quite catch up. And I don't know about you, but when I was small, when I was a child, I remember having a sense of wonderment in the world. I was really curious about ants and how they move and they run and they cluster. I loved looking at the shapes of clouds, the colours of the sky and how it moved around. The colour of nature, my dad's shaving brush and what he did with that when he lathered up his face. There was a real sense of sort of wonderment and intrigue in all these small things. I valued play, as most children do. I had an Etch-a-Sketch, which some of you won't know what that is, but it was a very simple, basic toy, and I carried it everywhere. I loved it. If you gave it me now, I'd give it you back. But at the time, it was just the best. It was the best. I loved watching the way a feather fell to the ground, or a small kindness of somebody offering me a few pence to get some sweets, or, you know, a boiled sweet, something small like that. There was a real sense of beauty and wonderment in that, and appreciation. But as I got older, life became a bit more complex. More was expected of me. And I guess I expected more out of life as well. And I suppose with the highs came quite a lot of disappointments. So sort of constantly sort of trying to catch the highs, but then feeling really dissatisfied when things didn't go my way. And in adolescence particularly, that can be very painful for a lot of people. But even, you know, the age I am now, you know, we still have to work with it. There's no sort of instant medicine that we can just quickly dispense from the pharmacy. And with age, I guess, became habitual patterns. Identity became more apparent. And I was probably more aware of my doubts, my fears, my views, and also that I had more choices and I could take more risks. And I experienced the highs and lows of that and the consequences of that in a more adult context. Yeah. But at some point, I remember feeling like I had lost my sense of purpose in life. So it kind of was exciting for a bit, but also it wasn't. There was quite a lot of drudgery. And I remember thinking, gosh, I really don't know where I'm going now. I need a guidebook or something, but I don't know where to find it. And I just felt very out of tune, out of kilter with life in general. I didn't really have a vision, and I thought I knew everything, but deep down I hadn't really got a clue. But I wouldn't tell you that, especially then. I wouldn't admit or own up to the fact that I didn't really know what was going on. So at that age, I like to think that I knew everything. And it reminds me of recently when I went to see an acupuncturist, a great man called Dr. Wen, who lives not too far from me. And I went to talk to him about my knees, which were a bit crumbly, and I needed some help. And I don't really believe in acupuncture. It was a bit like, what's this going to do? It's going to cost a lot of money, and it's just a few little pins, and it's not going to do anything. But in a way, my higher self was sort of saying, well, just go, try it out. You know, don't be sort of so rigid. Just go and try it out. And Dr. Wen, he said to me that we didn't, you know, he couldn't guarantee that acupuncture was going to completely fix my knees, but it may well do. And he had great knowledge and great hope that it would. And he said to me that we only know a minuscule amount of the whole universe. We don't know much. He said, we really, all of us here tonight, even me, we don't know very much at all about the whole universe. It's sort of an ant's worth, really. And I said to him, well, if we don't know much about the world and the universe, then how do you even know that? And he said to me, I don't. And in a way, what a great thing to admit, you know, two people not really knowing much at all. And I thought, wow, what a fantastic connection. Two people, you know, saying, well, it might and it might not, but we'll give it a go. And we've got some knowledge and wisdom and some faith, and we'll just go for it. Anyway, the moral of the story is every week I went to Dr. Wen, and it was a bit embarrassing because he'd say after my treatment, is that better? And every week I went, no, not really. And one week I almost broke a precept and said yes, because I started to feel a bit embarrassed, you know, every time he said, is that better? But then after about 6 weeks, I realized that I was late for my appointment, and I was almost running to the appointment. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So yeah, anyway, I was detracting, but in a way, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. And in a way, we just have faith, and we're just open and receptive. And with wisdom, we just strive on. And my knees are a lot better. And I pretty much think it has something to do with Dr. Wen. But it may not have, you know. But I think it has, even though he didn't know. So most of what we learn and how we live is guided by comparison, comparing ourselves to others, impulse, you know, grabbing, getting and spending, seeing things and just thinking, oh, I'll have that, or I'll go there, or that looks good, I'll do that. What we see via the media and in our lives, and what we hear from others. In a way, we're sort of always in a sort of a cycle of learning and living with others, and taking bits from each person. We can live in quite a literal world, and we can also operate with literal minds. And in a sense, maybe that feels safer. And I think for me, as I got older, it probably did feel safer, you know, to think it's either a yes or a no, and that's it. It's back to me knowing everything and not really knowing much at all. And for some of us, the simple things in life can seem, well, too simple. It can almost be like the blade of grass. You know, is that it? Is that the only teaching I'm getting? Or is that the only present I'm getting? Or I've invested all this money or time or whatever it is, and is that the only thing I'm getting back? And in a way, if you can turn that on its head and just sort of be curious about that, it's something worth doing. I think Walt Whitman said that time slips by like a field mouse not touching the grass. Time slips by like a field mouse not touching the grass. So in a way, time is of the essence, and there's a lot to appreciate in the world, even amongst all the sort of, you know, the other stuff that's around us at the moment. So I think it's important to regularly contemplate the things that inspire and guide us. And each of us will have our own answers. When we sat initially at the beginning, I'm sure we all had something different, or maybe didn't. Maybe we were just like, oh gosh, I don't know what inspires and guides me. And that's, again, a great place to be, because we can just kind of, you know, spend more time looking at that. And these things change as well. So what may have inspired us may change. And when I was young, maybe what inspired me then doesn't inspire me now. And I feel that the Dharma has been a huge inspiration in my life, and really radically made a change. It really has. Through my own efforts and through people in the Sangha, the Dharma has taken me forward. Yeah. So it's, yeah, it's worth appreciating these things in life. And in some ways it feels very simple. And the Dharma is deep and complex, but in some ways it feels very simple. It's like, yes, of course, I just meditate and sit and, you know, meet with people and look at trees. And how liberating is that? So yeah, the Dharma is deep and complex, and it can also be very simple, you know, can be very accessible as well. Yeah. So do these practices support our growth and well-being? Whatever inspires you, does it support your growth and well-being? Because I think when I was younger, I probably would have said a crate of beer. And then I asked my question, does it support my growth and well-being? And the answer would be no, it doesn't. Yeah. Are these practices, or these things that inspire us, are they helpful for us? Do they help us in our lives? Are they helpful for others? Are they helpful for our planet, our environment? And I often ask myself, do I care enough? And gladly I can say the answer is often yes. And sometimes I ask, am I doing enough? And that often is a yes, with a sort of, but I could be doing a bit more. Do these things that guide us, do they bring perfect vision or insight? Do they bring us wisdom? Do they help us to see through the sort of the fakery, in a way, of life? And do they support us on the path to transformation? I remember going to the Birmingham Buddhist Centre many years ago, and I saw a figure, a bodhisattva figure, of Vajrapani, who is actually situated behind me, and I remember just really resonating with that figure. And previous to that, I used to be practicing in a different Buddhist context, and again that figure was on the shrine. And so I just had this immediate connection. And I can't describe what it is, you know, because I'm quite a literal person. So I was like, well, it's just a piece of metal, isn't it, really? It's just on the shrine. And he looks a bit wrathful. He's surrounded by flames, holding the mythical Vajra in his hand. But I had a real connection. And so I read up on this particular bodhisattva figure. And he's sort of a courageous figure. In a way, he's an action bodhisattva, and he is a figure of energy and compassion for the skillful good in the world. He's a carrier of ethics. And I thought, oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a sort of a figure that I actually feel deeply connected with and inspires me. And we're all different. Somebody else, it might be something completely different. But Vajrapani, for many, many, many years, this bodhisattva figure and the qualities that he represents have always been deep in my heart. It's sometimes I can say, well, it's probably by choice. And other times I think, no, I don't think there was a choice. It was just a sort of instant connection. So yeah, what do we connect with in a Dharma context that helps us to sort of move forward, to see through? Another verse from Milarepa, who's a ancient Tibetan yogi. A yogi who discards all worldly ties, realizing all is magic and illusion, is ever joyful. A yogi who discards all worldly ties, realizing all is magic and illusion, is ever joyful. One who is weighted with a stone that pulls them to the bottom of samsara is ever sad. One who is weighted with a stone that pulls them to the bottom of samsara is ever sad. One who leaves all this and that behind, always practicing pure Dharma, is ever joyful. One who leaves all this and that behind, always practicing pure Dharma, is ever joyful. So realizing all is magic and illusion. I've been listening to some talks recently online via Adhisthana, a retreat centre, on myth. And Jana Vacha, who's an order member, was talking about a framework coined by Subhuti, who's a senior order member. In 2003, I think he did this. He said this about the 3 myths. And they are self-transcendence, self-discovery, and self-surrender. And then just to baffle us, he went into a 4th one, which was emergence. So he talked about the 3 myths and then added a 4th. And he touched briefly on each one and was saying that self-transcendence is when you may begin to see yourself. You may begin to see through your fixed self, your fixed, habitual, solid, rigid self, into a nature of reality. Almost sort of seeing through into the 3 lakshanas. All things are insubstantial, unsatisfactory, and impermanent. So getting a sort of glimpse of that, really sort of seeing through that. He talked about self-discovery in a way being that we can discover Buddhahood from within. So we're kind of always searching for something over there, you know, it's got to be over there, it's got to be in a different country or in a different place or with a different, you know, set of guides. But actually, you know, we're discovering in a way with the help of the 3 jewels, Buddhahood from within. And then the myth of self-surrender, which is opening out to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dharma processes. You can ask whoever's in your group about Dharma processes. And in a way, it's a sort of devotional receptivity, realization of the truth. And then the fourth one that wasn't on the list of the 3 myths was emergence, which I like. And in a way, he basically touched on the fact that we've just gotten ourselves out of the way. And in a way, we're relaxing and we're not forcing anything to happen. Emergence is just an arising, just a natural process. I mean, I think in a way, I suppose it's the sort of fruit of our labours in a way, just things arising and yeah, and continuing to arise. Anyway, it was a helpful framework, and yeah, the talks are on, well, I think I've been accessing them via YouTube, so they're on there. Jyotidana talks about our motivation to practice Dharma, and he asks, what is our motivation to practice the Buddha's teachings? It's a tricky one. And again, it can change. And sometimes we have skepticism of things that we can't see or we can't get at. You know, we like to sort of see what we're getting for our buck. We like to put our efforts into things that we're going to get. And in these days of fast food takeaways and fast everything else, in a way, I do feel that some of us want fast Dharma. You know, we just want to go and order it and then collect enlightenment in a box and take it home. Flat pack Dharma. But in a way, you know, what is our motivation to practice? And yes, we do have skepticism sometimes. It's maybe because of our need for certainty or our inbuilt literalism. He goes on to ask, as Dharma-farers or Buddhist practitioners, are we motivated by our own self-development? Does it stop there? Or are we able to move towards limitless, boundless creativity? The huge cosmic picture, the whole shebang, the unknown, the unfathomable, the huge cosmic picture. Are we motivated to practice for other beings and future lifetimes? Or for our own self-development? And in a way, you know, there's no answers to these because things change and we evolve and change, and they're just explorations. They're just things to explore and discuss with others, maybe. And I guess initially some people do come along for self-development. I think initially I came along for self-development, but through practice and being more receptive and opening up, yes, that has shifted and changed. So questions are, what motivates us to practice? What keeps our practice alive and not sort of dry? So we're not just reading words on a page and thinking, oh, okay, I'll follow the precepts. And I've read the Dhammapada and I'm on study level 2. What motivates and keeps our practice alive? What fuels us? What inspires and guides us in a Dharma context? And how do you inspire and guide for others or the world around us? And you don't always have to go with your initial answer. You can ask yourself it again and again over a period of, you know, time. How do I inspire others? Maybe you don't know, or maybe you do, you know. And sometimes it's good to get feedback from our friends. You know, sometimes our friends will say something and we think, oh my gosh, that's really lovely. You know, they might say, oh my gosh, when you helped me with that, I was so appreciative. And we may not see it ourselves. Sometimes it's good to get a little bit of feedback. It spurs us on, knows we're on the right track. Yeah. I've got another tiny little verse which I quite like. It's by Jackie Kay. If I was not myself, I would be somebody else. But actually, I am somebody else. I have been somebody else all my life. It's no laughing matter going about the place all the time being somebody else. People mistake you, and you mistake yourself. So we'll just have a minute to just sit, and then we will go into groups with the magic of Vajrapriya. And you can discuss those questions if you wish, and you may not wish, and that's okay. And then we'll come back and have a meditation and a chant, a Jyotidana, and that will be the night. Thank you.